Some years ago, before the body evacuations really started, the foaming node still had a hold on people. He saw potential in things, new ways of thinking about what the body could be used for. Before the evacuation started, the foaming node worked as an electrical engineer of some sort. He worked with electricity or something.
There was an ongoing interest to view the body as a distributed system, just another node in the network. Really, this was one of the central projects of the foaming node.
In a sense, all of the observers wanted to become one with the foaming node, to merge with his evacuations, to let his evacuations take over their bodies. The foaming node seemed to communicate and transmit information only through his regular evacuations. These kind of foam secretions of the body, his unconscious seeping out into the world.
A lot of people were wondering what exactly were the evacuations. In some ways, I believe they were possibly representations of the unconscious, the leaking unconscious.
The foaming node's evacuations and secretions had an important role in what was happening, which we were all trying to understand. There was a sense that the foaming node was being kept alive by video documentations of the evacuation. That somehow the video documentation functioned as some kind of life support system.
People only ever saw the foaming node's evacuations on video. No one ever really saw them in the flesh, so the evacuations were always mediated via the screen in a way.
Many of the observers had accepted that their primary mission was to transport and disseminate the body through a series of unique experiments. This is what the observers had been instructed to do.
The foaming node's evacuations pointed to an interest in modifying the body's end organ of excretion to that of the mouth. He wanted to turn the body upside down, to invert it, really.
Many of the observers were biologically equipped to distribute their bodies in a variety of ways. This is why they were chosen by the foaming node. In a way, he had become a weird kind of celebrity because of his evacuations.
It was felt that the chief function of the body was to transport the brain around. But the foaming node felt that redistribution of biological matter could still occur without the brain and central nervous system. And in actual fact, the brain was secondary to the project of distribution. While our understanding of human biology was changing, this too coincided with changing definition of reality.
There was a sense the foaming node didn't really exist unless his body was distributed to become one with the network. The human body as a new kind of hybrid species, a distributed biomass.
Foaming node really saw the body as an in-between state. The state between physical reality and non-reality.
There was a persistent rumour developing that the foaming node was in fact not alive at all, or that somehow he existed on another plane of reality to our own, in a state of suspended animation. But was the body even alive?
The foaming node was fascinated with the internal human body. He had no interest whatsoever with the exterior shell of the body. Our bodies are never truly our own. The foaming node really saw it as a temporary dwelling place.
The observers were the foaming node's instrument. In some ways, the observers felt the foaming node was using and controlling our bodies, putting them to use in new kinds of ways, new kinds of bodily experiences.
It wasn't long until the video holes appeared. At first they were thought to be completely random. However, it was soon realized that anywhere there was a screen of some sort, the video holes made a brief appearance.
What were the video holes? Some kind of communication system? A video portal? An attempt to distribute the body electronically? We still don't really know.
What we were experiencing were all signs of something trying to break through, to try and puncture a hole in what we call reality.
The foaming node was primarily a food source for observers, or at least this is how it turned out. This had become his central purpose, to be consumed to be eaten. In this way, he became a part of each observer's body, biological matter to be absorbed.
The whole notion of eating the foaming node secretions was odd. There was a sense that he was being kept alive for the sole purpose of consuming his evacuations, of ingesting them and taking them on to become part of oneself.
The evacuated foam was very addictive. Some of the observers were more addicted than others. It was believed the secreted foam provided unique properties.
I mean, the whole idea of a node, as in the foaming node, is interesting. Nodes, after all, are connection points, redistribution points. It's really a computer network term, possibly a communication endpoint.
The foaming node was really a biological network point. He represented the computer network biologically through his distributed secretions.
That's really what the foaming node represented. It was a connection point from one world to another, one body to another.
There was a perception, I think, that the foaming node headed up some kind of cult, which wasn't the case. The observers were simply observers to the events that took place over a particular period of time. The observers looked to the foaming node for instructions.
The ultimate aim in life is death.
Birth is a precondition of death. The foaming node was interested in the death of our current bodies and how dead bodies could be utilised more effectively.
There was certainly a feeling that our bodies were not our own. There was some other outside force at work. We are less human than we are thought to be, and we are in constant exchange with all manner of organisms and bacteria.
The observers were fascinated with the notion that the body's bacteria and microbiome remain alive until one is cremated. While we may die, the microscopic inhabitants and bacteria of our intestinal system remain alive.
Welcome to a whole new world, where Samsung LED technology brings you sharper images, deeper blacks, and brighter colors. The ultra-slim, eco-friendly Samsung LED TV, a whole new species of television.
The foaming node experimented with blood transfusions of different blood types. He experimented with receiving the wrong blood type from others to deliver foreign DNA into his own body. The overall effect was a feeling of impending doom, which overtook him for some time.
Many of the observers routinely received blood transfusions from other observers. Blood was considered life of the flesh. Blood was known as a specialized bodily fluid. It was the body fluid of transportation and the one most associated with distribution. Many of the observers were interested in removing all traces of vestigial organs, to remove from their bodies any signs of the past. But also to eradicate useless biological material, to clean the body out.
There are other kinds of very crude and somewhat desperate experiments that were starting to be explored for the distribution of the body. A number of the observers were using things like electrical tape. They would tape to their bodies the fingernail cuttings of other observers, for example, or teeth, or in some cases, actual fingers that some of the observers had removed.
It was suggested that some of the observers removed their wisdom teeth, and in some cases for the males, their nipples. One way of identifying a male observer was if they had had their nipples surgically removed or altered in some way.
I was involved in some of these experiments. Here, for example, are some wisdom teeth from another observer. I attached them to my body. I know others have explored a more visceral approach.
We all participated in organ distribution. Some of the observers had a kidney removed and transplanted into another observer, so each observer had the kidney of another. All the observers took immunosuppressant drugs. This lowered the body's ability to reject the kidney, which resulted in the kidney transplants being very successful with no complications.
The kidney transplants really embodied many of the ideas of the foaming node. All of our bodies have been distributed. We were living proof of that.
The kidney transplants were really about the shared body. The body was developing as a kind of network of nodes. A shared resource.
Things were getting very extreme. All sorts of things were discussed, including the amputation of limbs, fingers, feet, hands, as a way of spreading the body around, so to speak.
The term birth donor is used often. It was really used in connection with particular limbs and internal organs. The original owners, so to speak, prior to their distribution and circulation, was about creating a shared human organism. A body distributed amongst other bodies. This is what brought these people together. This is what connected them. Literally. The body as a form of streaming media.
The body was really ground zero. It has become the new cultural battleground.
Some of the observers also engaged in the dispersal of saliva. As an immediate way to spread and distribute biological materials around.
The distribution of saliva was a quick and immediate way to participate in the distribution of the body.
Many of the observers were aware of the developments in fecal transplants and other kinds of transfusions in bodily fluids. However, it was felt what was missing was the complete redistribution and transfusion of all bodily fluids. The clearing out of the body. The replacement of all liquid in the body.
The complete transfusion of all bodily fluids seemed entirely possible. There was some concern that the body would become overloaded with competing gut bacteria and flora. This could potentially cause it having problems functioning.
A number of the observers were very sexually active. In a way, the very idea of procreation was about the distribution and reproduction of the human body.
There are a number of pregnancies. Absolutely. The children of the foaming node, as they came to be called.
Children of the foaming node.
The biological imperative of the body is to survive at all costs. Sperm donation was actively utilised as a method of biological distribution, but also sperm donation into other species. It was an attempt to force new kinds of symbiotic relationships. In a way, they were crude forms of gene transplantation.
A number of the observers ate the placentas of other observers' children. The idea of ingesting biological material that was very much in line with the Biological Distribution Project. For some time, the foaming node was collaborating with Bai Huan Ling. This is when it all really started, when the new organ appeared. Ling had identified an organ inside the body that seemed to have other kinds of unknown functions and uses. There was some thinking the new organ represented some primal form of life inside the body.
The emergence of the new organ really indicated that the body had other latent functions, other uses that were previously unknown to us.
The anatomical description of the body laid down over 100 years ago was changing. The foaming node felt it wasn't just the appearance of one individual internal organ, but possibly many new systems of the body that had been previously unmapped and unknown.
Ling's surname referenced the common lingfish. I think the foaming node liked the fact that Ling's name referenced a fish. He liked the idea of the female fish spawning many unfertilised eggs in the water. I think in some ways this connected Ling to the foaming node and the idea of the distribution of biological material.
I personally never met Bao Wanling. No one did. Apart from the foaming node, Ling kept his identity a secret, possibly because of ridicule from the traditional Chinese medicine community.
It turned out that the foaming node and Bai Huan Ling shared another interest in internal organs. Apparently, Bai Huan Ling had donated one of his lungs to the foaming node some years back. So in some respects, they both shared a body.
Something was happening in the human body. It was an exciting time.
Bai Huan Ling really functioned as a host body for the foaming node. Their relationship really became a kind of client-server-like system of communication.
So they started doing surgical procedures on themselves, following instructions on how to locate specific organs from the internet and YouTube.
Internet surgeries, it had a nice ring to it. It was a new bodily craze for a while. Did I find a new human organ? No. But I could have been looking in the wrong place, and that doesn't mean the organ doesn't exist.
Historically, the body was flayed open in the 18th century. When physicians attempted to understand the internal space of the body, its interconnected organs, its systems and functions. Frequently at the time, various physicians would perform experimental surgery on themselves, which in a way was also occurring now with the craze of internet surgeries, a new form of experimentation on the body.
For some time it was felt the body had too many systems. The foaming node wanted to reduce these. He wanted to remake the systems of the body. For example, the skeletal system, the muscular system, the nervous system, the endocrine system, the cardiovascular system, the lymphatic system, the respiratory system, the digestive system, the male and female urinary system, the male and female reproductive systems, and so on. Were all these necessary?
There was some experimentation with what could be defined as cannibalism, or I should rephrase that, small amounts of cannibalism from one observer to another, really just sampling the flesh of another and introducing and distributing that material into the body of another.
Many of the observers never thought of themselves as cannibals in the purest sense. Cannibals really devour the body of the same species as a food source.
The observers weren't treating the body as a food source. And clearly they didn't destroy the body in the process. It was very much just in line with ideas of the distribution of the body. The idea of a peer-to-peer network of the body, a shared decentralized system.
After some time, we saw the appearance of what came to be known or referred to as the Black Souls. Some speculated these could have been Wi-Fi signals that at some point had materialized and become visible in the atmosphere.
The Black Souls became a unique part of the foaming node landscape for some time.
The foaming node viewed all manifestations of technology as part of the human body, just as the Black Souls were part of the body. In the sense that humans create technology, therefore, by definition, technologies are an extension of ourselves into the world.
There was a general interest in the idea of digiphrenia, whereby technology allows us to be in different spaces and even different identities at the same time.
The Earth has been converted into a huge brain through wireless technology, whereby the human species is increasingly a distributed organism.
foaming node would appear in different bodies. This was quite common. He wasn't just dependent on one human form.
The observers affectionately referred to them as Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear. They would appear from time to time, a family of foaming nodes, each of them with their own individual evacuations and secretions.
Increasingly, there was a sense that the foaming node functioned as a form of media, which needed to be distributed to other channels, to other networks, or rather to other bodies.
The foaming node no longer identified as an individual. He really represented this breakdown of the singular individual and felt that one body was no longer enough. This is one of the things the distribution project was really about.
The foaming node was really looking for an escape hatch for the body. The idea to move between forms, to be a distributed entity.
The foaming node was really building a ladder from one body to another. He was fully aware of his own form was decaying at a rapid rate. He saw this as the future direction of the body in a way. Multiplying the form would also destroy the form, or what we have come to understand that the body is.
Bai Kuan-Ling was undergoing extensive glandular therapy.
There were some theories that Bao Wan-Ling had actually been extracting a number of his organs and even body parts over a period of time and directly distributing them to the foaming node.
He was ingesting the glands of other animals, such as the liver, thyroid, pancreas, and adrenals, in order to strengthen his own organs prior to extraction. The foaming node was increasingly fixated on the full moon. It was during the full moon's lunar cycle that experiments around the human body were most active and likely to be most successful. This is primarily because intestinal parasites are most active during the full moon phase. It's the period in which the parasite's eggs hatch inside the human host.
The foaming node was really a manager, or rather, a midwife of distributed human biology.
There was a general desire, I think, for people wanting their bodies to change, to evolve into something else.
The foaming node had numerous body fantasies, some of which he experimented with, and others at other times they were simply fantasies. The foaming node was being documented a lot in all forms of media. This led to a strange side effect. Residue of the foaming node's image and presence would remain on the screen as a kind of ghosting.
At some point, the foaming node became very suspicious of contemporary recording devices and technologies for fear that his image would remain as a ghostly imprint on all forms of electronic media. The residue of his image started to leave its imprint
Different parts of reality.
on different parts of reality, particularly anywhere where there was an opening, an entry point, a hole. Vomiting too mimicked the foaming node's own evacuations and the release and purging of bodily fluids. So many of the observers went through various stages of self-induced vomiting.
The vomiting or purges were really ways of externalizing the internal body, of bringing it to the surface, revealing it to people.
A number of religious groups had problems with the foaming node. They saw his transmissions and evacuations as potentially threatening to their belief systems.
The Catholic Church was the problem. There are a number of media statements by the Church claiming that the foaming node was transmitting messages of questionable origin that were, how should I say, beyond this world.
Beyond this world. Beyond this world.
After a period of time, the foaming node went very quiet, and over time his evacuations began to change. The foaming node had reached some kind of threshold, like he was no longer in control of his evacuations. The foaming node seemed to be in the process of exiting his current body.
greatest human achievements have demanded boldness, vision, and the ambition to go above expectations and beyond imagination. At LG, we fully embrace this philosophy. And never has it been embodied more so than in our new OLED TV. It's the greatest leap forward in display technology. Picture quality is sheer perfection. Natural colors break through the limits of TV. And the design is simply light years ahead. It is the world's largest and slimmest 55-inch OLED TV. This is not an evolution. It's a brave new beginning. LG OLED TV, the ultimate display, only possible by going above and beyond.
Step into an incredible new reality. Powered by Sony's X1 Extreme 4K HDR processor, objects on screen are individually remastered for true-to-life depth, contrast and texture. Capable of reproducing 64 times as many color levels, eliminating banding effects for beautiful lifelike gradations. The calibrated beam LED design eliminates flare to create shadows that are crisp and clean. Each LED is individually controlled for precisely tuned brightness and incredible contrast. Discover extreme reality.
Listening to the flowing, gushing sound of blood coursing through the veins. It was a sound which represented the true distribution of bodily material, of red and white blood cells traveling around the body.
The distributed sounds of the body became integral to the foaming node. He would regularly contemplate the sounds and consider their deeper meanings and significance, which he initially perceived to be a form of communication.
Once it was clear that the foaming node had passed many of his internal organs that were distributed amongst others, including some observers, one of whom got his corneas and another his blood vessels. It was remarkable, really. The foaming node had transferred and distributed his evacuations to the new body, to Bai Kuan-Ling. While the foaming node's body had expired, his electronic residue was channeled now through Bai Kuan-Ling, and his evacuations continued.
After the foaming node had died, a number of the observers took DNA from the foaming node's body, as it seemed like a biological resource that could be utilised.
The dispersal of the foaming node's atoms were sprayed into the atmosphere, which interacted with the biosphere. distributed to the cloud.
There was a bit of an obsession with crematoriums. In fact, a number of the observers got into serious legal issues because of their regular presence at crematoriums.
While there was also some interest in the idea of the traditional burial, the body slowly being transformed into rotting matter, cremation was more popular. This all related to the foaming node's interest in the notion of the death hormone. The hormone within all of our bodies that starts the process of death, the death of our bodies.
The decomposition of the body was of interest because it represented the body beyond its limits. Its breakdown is a form of biological dispersal. The decaying body represented the base material nature of existence.
People continue to experiment with different kinds of delivery systems for the human body. More left-of-field development started to emerge. Sewage treatment plants started to become places of real interest for many of the observers.
Human feces are about the distribution of biological material. For this reason, a number of the observers were taking various medications to increase the elimination of their feces, to place their feces into circulation, so to speak.
There was a growing sense that the gastrointestinal system resided outside the human body. It was therefore felt the intestines and colon were of particular interest in the distribution project, as they were already, in some respects, separate from the body.
There was something wrong with the Bai Wan Ling head. Something very wrong. There was some kind of biochemical malfunction there, which seemed to have an effect on things.
There was a growing interest in harvesting Bai Wan Ling's head to distribute some of his biological material while maintaining his life and his evacuations.
It was around this time that there was some interest in far more experimental approaches to things. Different kinds of delivery systems for the foaming node's evacuations.
It couldn't be relied upon that the evacuations would work in another person's body as it had with Bai Wan Ling.
The most straightforward method of doing this was in human stem cells, or actually in aborted human fetuses. The fetuses would serve as suitable live biological material to grow the evacuations outside of the body.
It was critical that aborted human fetuses were located really as soon as possible. The idea of little corpses of people distributed throughout the human bloodstream initially held great promise.
The project ran into some problems. We didn't expect that there would be such a dramatic reaction to the aborted fetus materials in people's bloodstreams.
People started to react against the presence of other human DNA in their bodies. They were forming an immune response against the aborted fetus DNA. Another interesting channel of distribution saw a number of the observers infect lollipops with a variety of different viruses and bacteria. These function very well as delivery systems and viral agents for other observers to utilize. The consumption of infected lollipops was very popular.
Bodies were very much shared systems of infection.
Some of the observers became interested in the side project, while many felt that the distribution of the human body had potential. There was lots of interest in the notion of the pseudo-human, of surgically implanting into the body other kinds of biological material, not only from the dead, but from other species. The idea was to construct a pseudo-human of sorts, to force the body into other kinds of crude biological reconfigurations and symbiotic relationships.
This is where the idea of subcutaneous human remains implants emerged out of. A number of the observers implanted small amounts of the remains of others into their bodies, really as a crude form of dispersal of the dead body into a living one. Things like this were explored all the time.
For the first time, the followers of the foaming node had no foaming node. There were no more evacuations, no more secretions, no more video holes or internet surgeries, no more talk of amputations or the constant blood transfusions that went on.
The electromagnetic burns became a marker of sorts for people, a way of identifying others who shared a similar interest in the distribution of the body. They were really markings for those who had been exposed for extended periods of time to electromagnetic frequencies.
These electrical burns were directly related to an increase in electromagnetic activity.
There was a lot of interest in externalizing the interior body. It was all about the interior body. Many of the observers attached organ meats from cows and pigs onto the exterior of their bodies to represent the body turning inside out.
It was felt that we had lost contact with the base level reality of our bodies. Externalizing of interior organs was really about drawing attention to this.